and welcome. This is Preeti. Today I'm using this beautiful stamp set called Babies on Balloon, which has quite a few critters in them and also some balloons and some really amazing sentiments. And the intent of the stamp is actually to create critters flying in air holding a bunch of balloons. But I just want to show you how by just shifting a single stamp, or you can just create these critters to be either sitting down or floating in the air or even coming downwards. So like here, for example, I have made this little elephant sit in a way that she's on the ground, or if you turn it a bit and you can see how it looks like she's flying. Now all it needs is some of those balloons to give you that perspective of her flying. Or if you tilt it downwards, then it looks like she's coming downwards, or even that she's flying in a different direction. So just by doing that simple change in the positioning, you can really make that elephant go, or any critters go, the way you want it to be. So here I'm using the card today is called No Line coloring, which doesn't necessarily mean that there's no line. There's still a line, but it's just that once you're done coloring, it'll almost look like you colored it, like you painted at this project. So first I'm starting off with this large sentiment which is available in the same stamp set, and I'm going to stamp it using Versafine black pigment ink right in the center of the note card, because I'm going to anchor all the element around the sentiment. So it's important to first stamp the sentiment. So once I've done that, I'm going to place the little baby elephant right underneath that sentiment. And again, as I said, I'm going to make her sit on the ground and not fly. So I'm just going to stamp her pretty much straight, like she's sitting. And then once we're done coloring, it'll look like she's sitting on the ground, I promise you. And then once I'm done adding the elephant, I am going to move on to the balloons. And I want to make sure that the balloons are lined in such a way, the angle in which I'm stamping the balloon makes it easy for me to later on add the strings in her hand. So I'm just kind of making sure those angles are correct. And then I'm going to stamp the second balloon right over it. And again, as I said, because this is no line coloring, you can get away with that. If it is black, it wouldn't look good, but because it's no line coloring, once you're done coloring, it'll all look like as if the yellow balloon is behind the smaller balloon, the larger balloon is behind the smaller balloon. So here I'm going to start coloring. And all I'm doing is I'm starting off with C5, and I'm adding the shadow areas of the elephant. So under her arm, under her face, under her the bow that's over her head. So wherever you think there is a shadow casted by another element over, I'm going to add the darker shade. And then I'm going to blend that with C3. So I've chosen a cooler color for her, for this little baby elephant, instead of warmer colors. I kind of feel like it looked more nicer with cool colors. Warm colors would look nice too, I suppose. And then I'm going to blend that with C1, and then I'm going to blend the C1 with C0. But you can see here, you can't really see the contrast. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding even darker shade of gray, and this time I'm using C7. And I'm going to use very little bit of the C7 again in the same places where I added C5 initially, in the darkest or the shadow areas. And then I'm going to blend that with C5, and I'm going to blend C5 with C3. So I'm being very careful as to where I want to add the C3, the C5. And then once I'm done with C5, I'm going to blend that with C3, coming a little bit inside of the elephant. And you can't really see much of a difference. You can't see the face building, but once we add different elements to the stamp, you will start noticing how this elephant comes to life. And you can see how that gray line that we stamped with earlier starts to disappear. And that's what it means by no line coloring. And then I've gone ahead and blended the remaining with the lighter shades. And once I'm done with that, I'm going to add some pink to her inside of her ears and her bottom of her leg. And for that, I'm using R20, R11, and R00. And I'm also going to add R11 and 11 and R00 to her cheeks. So I skipped the darker pink for that. And then here what I'm doing is I'm adding some lines on her snout or her trunk. You know, those elephants have some ridges on their trunks. I'm just adding that a little bit to give her a little bit more character. And then I'm taking a black pen and I'm drawing in her eyes, leaving a small dot for a sparkle, a white sparkle. And then I've also added her eyebrows. And then I'm taking this white gel pen and adding some dots to her cheeks and also her nails for on her arms, her legs, elephant legs. And now I'm doing her bow, and for the bow I've chosen some aqua colors. So I've started with BG15 as the darkest, laying again in the darker areas, blending that with BG 13 and then BG 11 and then BG 10. So when I use the lighter colors, usually the darker colors get desaturated because of the alcohol content in the lighter colors. So I like to go over it a second time, and I'm repeating the process once again. So again, I'm adding BG 15 in the darkest and then blending it towards the lightest. But I'm also going to take BG 15 once more and just add a few flicks here and there to give that bow some more depth. Now we're going to start off with the balloon here, and I'm starting off with Y35, and then I'm going to blend that with Y15 and Y11, and then I'm going to take Y38. So that Y35 that I added the first shade is actually behind the balloon that is sitting over it, if you can see that, if you can. And that's the reason I wanted something that is behind that to be lighter. And then I blended those colors with Y15 and Y11. And for this blue balloon, I'm using the same color combination as what I used for her bow or her ribbon on her head. So starting off with BG15 and BG13, 11, and you can see how that BG11 looks so nice and light behind that yellow balloon. It almost looks like the yellow balloon is behind and it's transparent. And that's what happens when you add when you do no line coloring. If I had added black lines, the black would look so stark and it wouldn't look natural. Not that this is realistic, but even for cartoon you need to have that ability to make them look a little bit realistic, I suppose. So here I'm adding some ground. I don't want her to be floating in air, so I just took out some warm gray colors and added some shadows underneath her, so it makes it look like she's sitting on the ground. And then I'm going to take this gray pen that I have in my stash. This is a Staedtler gray pen, and I'm just going to draw in the ribbons or the thread or whatever tying the balloon, and I'm going to add some little bows right on the balloons, the knot of the balloon. And now all that is done, the coloring part is done. All that's left is I'm going to add this panel onto a light gray cardstock using some foam adhesive. Again, this card is very clean and simple, easy to color, and it just packs a lot of impact just because of that no line coloring element. And then I'm just going to adhere this onto that gray cardstock, and that pretty much completes the card. I hope you enjoyed this video and you'll give no line coloring a go. Give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.